On this episode of RCKicks, we're taking a look at this, the bargain basement HPI Maverick Phantom XB. Is it one that you might entertain, or should you walk on by? Let's find out. Hi and welcome to RCKicks. On today's show, well, we're looking at this, the Maverick Phantom XB, which belongs to HPI Racing. So this is more of their entry-level stuff. And a lot of you have been asking to see more entry-level buggies, but not just things like WL toys. So I thought this would be brilliant because I can also put it head-to-head with a few other cars in future videos, and we can really see where this stands against those. So what can I tell you about the Phantom XB? Well, it's pretty much a full plastic chassis. Comes as a ready to run. You can get it with a battery, a USB charger, the standard stuff, transmitter, receiver, so you're fully up and running. The only thing you have to do when you take it out the box is put the spoiler on, charge up the battery, and away you go. Now in the UK currently they are £115, but some websites will let you take away the battery and the charger, for instance. So that's what I did because I've got my own chargers and loads of my own batteries. So I picked this up for £90. Now in the UK, we also have a 20% sales tax. So if you think about it, 20% of that amount is going to the government. So you're picking this up for a pretty reasonable price, that's for sure, being that it comes shipped, boxed, delivered and everything. And I have to say, it's a bit of a looker. I think it's a good looking buggy, to be fair. It's nice and sleek. I do like the wheels. They're pretty cool. Standard wheels, so you can change them later on if you want. Comes brushed. This is not a brushless version. You'd have to upgrade to brushless if you decided to, but it has got a 2S and 3S Maverick ESC, which is brilliant because that means you can put 3S in this puppy and it will then give it come to life a lot more. It's got a Maverick receiver. It just says MRX 244. It's all standard electronics again, which is really nice to see because you can swap them out at any point. So if you decided you wanted to upgrade to brushless, for instance, you wouldn't have to change the servo or the receiver. You would just unplug them, change the ESC and the motor. If you wanted to put a different motor in, you could just bolt it straight in. So it's a very grown-up RC from that point of view. There's loads of space. It's all plastic. The shocks are oil and they're pretty good. I'm quite happy with them. They're okay. I think they're like metal capped, but they're actually pretty much plastic housing. But they feel okay for the buggy. I don't see any issues with having to change the oil in them or anything like that. They feel fine. And you can't adjust the toe or anything. They're all set links. You could upgrade it later on yourself by putting in some turnbuckles if you decided to. Parts, again, very easy to get hold of. It's a pretty standard bit of kit. It's got metal dog bones front and rear. What else can I tell you about it? It's pretty standard. Now it's got a brushed 550 motor. Not sure what spec motor that is. If I find out, I'll put it below. It's got a servo saver and a standard Maverick servo MS, oh, I can't even read that, MSQ something or other servo. So you could easily upgrade that as well if you wanted to. But really, personally, I think what you're going to do with this is just put batteries in it, drive it and enjoy it. The diffs feel really nice. There's no issues with the lack of grease or oil or anything. They feel fine. So from a preparation point of view, I'm pretty happy. So what I'm going to do now is we'll dig into the diff, take a look and see what they're like inside. We'll have a look at the pinion and spur just to see whether they're greased up well and things like that. So let's crack on and take a look. So when you're buying a car, one aspect that's very important is you have access to replacement parts. If you break your buggy, the last thing you want to do is not be able to replace anything, and then it gets thrown in the cupboard and never used again, and that ends up being a very expensive experience. So I looked into parts availability for this buggy, and currently I didn't have any issues finding access to replacement parts. While I was looking for replacement parts, I did note that you could upgrade certain parts of the buggy if you so wish it. There was aluminium knuckles, Then there's rear hubs. I also saw that you could upgrade these shocks to full metal, as well as there was a selection of other small upgrades that you could do. After digging into the Maverick Phantom XB, what can I pass on to you? Well, I'm pretty impressed. One thing I really like about digging into buggies and cars, especially the budget versions, is what the designers decided to spend their money on and where they decided to save. And was it a good decision? Is it logical? Did they spend money trying to make it look blingy from the outside, but inside is where they saved all their money, where they should have spent more money on the driveline, but they gave you blingy parts on the outside to make it look more valuable, that kind of thing, if that makes any sense. So I obviously have dug into quite a few budget buggies. So what do I think of this one? Well, I have to say I am quite impressed. I think they've done a pretty decent job going on by the budget that they actually have to make. Now, there's things they've done that are very smart to try and save money. Classic example is this part here. It does multiple things, so it's all wrapped up into one part, where obviously is much cheaper than manufacturing 4 different parts. So this covers the prop shaft to keep all the dirt out. It also covers the pinion and spur gear, but there's a little access panel on the side, so you can just take a look to make sure it's running okay. It also holds the front pivot points for the upper arms, as well as it's got the rear upper arm mounts as well. So a great way to save money is to get one part that does lots. From a plastic point of view, I'm pretty happy. This is not entry-level plastic by a long shot. It's not premium, but it's definitely not on the bottom of the barrel. So I'm very happy to see that they've spent a little bit more and gone for a slightly better plastic. The prop shaft is nice and thick, and it doesn't seem to flex too much when I try and pull on it. Obviously it's bearings all the way through. Now they have actually spent some of their money on the, I'm not sure what the gear is at the end of the prop shaft, I forget, so I'm sure one of you will comment below, oh, you should know this, Kevin. But that's in metal, as is the diff itself. It's bull raised, full metal, cups of metal as well. There's 2 planetary gears in there. The oiling and greasing was above average, I would say, and they've actually shimmed the gears as well, which is really nice to see that they've gone to that attention to detail. So they've put a bit of the money really into the drive line and making it a bit stronger for you. The pinion is obviously metal, the spur gear is plastic. Screws, I have to say these screws for an entry-level kit are above average for sure. Now they're not premium by any shot, but they are definitely a step up, and I think you could use the screws a few times. You know, it's not a case of one out, one in, that's your lot, they're finished. I think you could probably actually work on this car. They're at that level. So I have to give them credit. They have spent a bit more on their hardware. Right, let's put it all back together again, fire it up, see what the servo's like, and then we'll take it for a blast and see how it performs. So the ESC is 2S and 3S, so I picked up a few of my batteries just to see how well they fit. Now the standard battery, if you will, is the NIMH, standard sort of Tamiya pack, and that goes in with plenty of space. Now it will run 2S and 3S, so I picked up a 2S LiPo battery, which is the one that I tend to run in all my Tamiya cars because it's the same form factor, and that fits no problems at all. Again, same, just put it in, away you go. But if you want to give it the full beans and run it on 3S, I took my 3S battery and I fitted it in the car. It is a lot tighter, but it is possible to get it in. I did have to modify the top plate. It's not the chassis that's the problem. You can drop it straight in. It's when you close the lid on this type of 3S battery, the cable is quite thick because of the C rating, but it's also up in the top hand corner, so it gets in the way a little bit. So I've just modified the corner of the top plastic. The actual battery lid, if you will, the strength is in this section. The sides just hang over to stop it from falling out, so removing a section in the corner doesn't change anything at all. I also raised up the peg, the holding peg, slightly by about 1 mil, and change the screw to a slightly longer one to give me that fraction more height so that I could fit this in without having to fight it. I hate having cars where you put the battery in you want and you got to fight around for 5 minutes to make it fit. That now works fine on this 3S battery. And me personally, I would run this on 3S. Body, it's reasonably decent polycarbonate. It's obviously screen printed, and then they've added a few stickers. You've got the name is a sticker, the wind is a sticker, and so are these sort of air duct vent things. Now, I put a question out to the RCKicks Patreon people about what they thought from a looks, and it went down quite well. So I have to agree with them. I think it's a reasonably good looking buggy. It's better looking than the front cab forward kind of racing style, having a sleeked back kind of cockpit, which I think is a better way to go. As for the transmitter, it's a pretty standard affair. It's quite chunky, it's quite large. It's one up from the Ultra Basic. Obviously, it's all plastic. You've got the power at the back there. It has got a foam wheel, which is good to see. I'm not a big fan of the solid plasticky ones. It takes 4 AA batteries in the bottom. It has a flap on the top, which gives you your channel reverse on channel 2, channel 1, and then you've got a high and low, and it says channel 2, so I'm not sure if that's for steering or that's to turn down the power. We'll find out when we take it for a bit of a run, but it feels good, it feels okay. When you turn it on at the back, you get an LED comes up on the top. Right, let's fire it up and see what the steering's like. So let's take a look at the steering. What do you think? It's pretty okay. I wouldn't say it's gonna win any competitions, but I wouldn't say it's super slow. Right, all that's left to do now is take it out and give it a blast. So we're going to do a couple of speed runs first, starting off with the NIMH battery, and then we'll put a 2S LiPo. I have got a 3S LiPo, but I'd have to change the connector and I don't have time. So at a later date, we'll run it on a 3S and see what we can get. Right, this is the NIMH, so let's see how fast it can go. That's 30 kilometers an hour, so it felt pretty slow, not so good. Let's swap over to the 2S LiPo and see if we can do any better. Right, so the 2S LiPo is now in the car, and I've reset the GPS back to 0, as you can see that. So let's see if that makes any difference. Oh yeah. .32 kilometers an hour, so marginal. It still feels kind of slow for a 1/10. This buggy definitely needs to go to 3S or upgrade the motor. It just feels a little bit slow. It's not far off what I would be really happy with, but it just feels a little bit meh. Right, let's take it for a blast and see how we get on. So there you go, that's the first look at the Maverick Phantom XB 1/10 scale brushless, no, not brushless, brushed. So there you go, there's a first look at the Maverick Phantom XB brushed 1/10 scale budget buggy. What did I think? Well, the first speed run left me a bit cold, bit disappointed, only 30 kilometers an hour, which is only 18.6 miles per hour. Then when I went to 2S, I was expecting quite a big boost, but again, nothing. 32 kilometers an hour. We're barely scratching the 20 mile an hour. That was 19.8 miles per hour, so a little bit slow. Fine for children, but anybody who's used RC before will probably find that a little bit slow going. Now, I did have enough time to do a 3S run, so we'll cut to that now and then we'll come back to talk about it. Okay, so I've managed to get it to run on 3S. Let's see how fast it is. So as you can see, putting a 3S in this buggy really does bring it to life. And if you're going to buy one of these, I highly recommend you get a 3S LiPo to put into this buggy. That way you can just run the stock electronics, but it feels much more punchy. And I think you'd be completely happy with that kind of speed. Now, that speed run wasn't done on the same road. The road that we did the first two speed runs was a little bit rougher, so you could probably knock off a tiny amount. But if you look at the result at 47 kilometers an hour or 29.2 miles per hour, you're talking nearly 10 mile an hour faster. So definitely 3S is the way to go on this buggy. Or if you don't have 3S, you could put brushless in this and upgrade to brushless. The choice would be yours. So what else can I tell you about it? I was happy with the way it drove. It did feel very balanced. I could actually get it to sort of slide a little bit. It did feel like a very modern buggy, like I've driven more expensive buggies. It did drive the same sort of way. The tires were really good on the actual road that I was driving on, so I was actually quite happy with it. Little bit of understeer and then a bit of oversteer, so it was actually quite controllable. I could get it to drift a little bit on the gravelly dirt, which I really liked. So with the 3S, it's definitely more lively. The shocks, very happy with the shocks. If you look in some of the footage, you can see that as I'm turning the car, the shocks are pivoting and moving, which is exactly right, so they're dialed in. But then you'd kind of expect that from a manufacturer that has brought out lots and lots of cars. So the shocks I'm completely happy with on that front. You can upgrade, there is a few upgrades for these, so you can upgrade the shocks if you want to. Personally, I would save the money. I think the shocks that are on it are fine. The only thing that would make me want to change the shocks is if I started doing big jumps, I'd want to be able to adjust the collars, and you can't do that on these ones to adjust the spring rate. But I'm pretty happy with that. So far, I am very happy with the buggy, but before I give it the 100% stamp of approval, there was one issue, and that was while I was driving it, it started to make quite a bit of noise. And I wasn't sure why. It was driving fine, but then I came back and I opened up the little pinion door to have a look, and there was some scoring on the pinion. Now, I'm not sure yet if there's dirt that has got in or the motor has moved. So that, I will dig into that a lot more before we do the next video with this car. So I'm gonna hold off giving it a double thumbs up in case there's something that might need to be done before you drive it, whether you can actually get a metal motor mount or whether it was purely fluke that there was dirt inside of it. But people have said to me that the motor and pinion can move a little bit, and they've had issues with that. So until I dive into it and really diagnose what happened, I'm going to hold off just a little bit. But on the next video, we're going to put this up against a whole range of budget RC cars that are in the same sort of range as this one, and we're going to put it definitely head to head with the WL Toys 104001, as this is priced exactly the same. So we'll do some head to heads, we'll push them hard and see what happens. Anyway, thanks so much. See you on the next one.